podcast fans? What's happening? Todd Durkin here with your Todd Durkin Impact Show, and I am so fired up for today. You are in for a special treat. And before I go there, I want to give you a little bit of backstory about our special guest today. Have you ever noticed that people come into your life just at the right time? It was 1997, and I was living in Los Angeles, California, where I was training a Hollywood producer. Now, I knew I wasn't going to stay there for the rest of my life, and I was searching, deep searching for what was going to be the next step. It was one of those times in your life when you're going so deep, but you don't know where to go. I was 27 years old, and I knew I had to make a move. So in January 1998, I moved from Los Angeles to San Diego to go to graduate school at San Diego State University. I was going to school. I was doing about 20 hours per week of athletic training hours at the University of San Diego. I was doing massage therapy. I bet many of you didn't even know I did massage for over 10 years. I was doing personal training. I was even a part-time instructor at a community college. I was working like 80 to 90 hours a week, 7 days a week, busting my tail, trying to figure out life. And then my life changed. I got a call from the apartment manager where I was living, and she said that there was a couple in from Canada who lived here part-time, and they were looking for someone that could train them and do some massage therapy with them. Little did I know that the man I was about to meet was going to change my business and life forever. Today, we have the one, the only, my mentor, my friend, and someone who is one of the greatest influences of my life, Mr. Wayne Cotton. My friends, I am back, and I have the man, the myth, my mentor, the legend, Wayne Cotton on the line. Wayne, great to have you today.
You too, Todd. You too, Todd. This is wonderful.
Well, listen, I want to first start with gratitude. And I don't even think. I know there is no one in my life who has impacted my business or entrepreneurial world more than you. And I am so fired up today to share you with all of our loyal podcast listeners because, man, in our 22-year relationship, I am so grateful, Wayne, for all that you have ever done for me, my family, my team, just life, man. You bring it every time, and I just can't wait for our people to hear from you.
Todd, I remember when I first met you, you were a massage therapist, and I think you've already talked about in the intro, but you were a massage therapist, and we got this number. We were in this same complex, and I phoned the front desk and said, I'm looking for a great massage therapist. This gal says, well, people rave about some guy who lives here. And I said, okay, so find him. So she gives back with this number for Todd Durkin, and I phoned. And I recall saying to you, could you bring a massage table over here? And you said, yeah, sure, I can do that. I remember Brenda and I were looking out over the balcony. Is this guy coming across the open space between your place and mine? And he's got these Uggs on his feet. And he's got this massage table over his shoulder. He comes in and we have this conversation. And then sometimes we went for massage over at your place. And I thought you had a massage studio set up there, and I didn't realize it was your bedroom and that you had the mattress up against the wall and sheets over top of it. And I saw your car, and the interior lining was hanging down, and it was an old beater, and it didn't run right. So I knew you a long time ago.
Yes, those were the humble beginnings, and we all have humble beginnings.
No
the
kidding.
velour was hanging down from the '87 beat up old Volvo. I had to put $3 of gas in my car back then, and to be able to do massage therapy while I was in grad school was just such a blessing because I was able to get some cash while I was in there. And yes, literally, folks, for over 2 years, I would flip up my quote bed, i.e. mattress on the floor, flip it up, open up the table, and I would break out my massage therapy skills. And at the time, I was doing something called Zen body therapy, which is a mix of Rolfing, Feldenkrais, energy work. And, man, having my hands, I never realized until I went to massage therapy school in 1995, when you've got your hands and a table, then you can change the world with just your hands, a table, and some strong intent. And Wayne, I still remember that, honestly, you being on that table, and I was trying to get you to stop talking because I was trying to get you to relax, but you were asking me all these questions about life, and we got to talking about my father, and I'm like, man, this is a different guy. Like, this guy's special. So I remember that day like it was yesterday.
That led to an amazing period of time. And Brenda's always said those football hands gave such an amazing massage. He was the best, always the best.
Well, what I think a lot of times for massage therapists or anyone who works with their hands, your intent behind the skill that you use. And massage therapy, I owe it. Those are the roots. And that's how I started. And, when I met you, I did not have Fitness Quest 10. And as a matter of fact, in now having Fitness Quest 10 for 20 years, I give you credit, Wayne, for many different aspects of Fitness Quest 10. But before Fitness Quest 10 was Fitness Quest 10, I remember you and I sitting at Sayal's, the restaurant, Junior Sayal's restaurant, and on a napkin, scratching out the different names we could name Fitness Quest 10. I had no idea how to register a business. I had no idea how to run a business. I just knew I wanted to help people. I remember sitting in Brugger's Bagels and you sharing your different systems with me of like, man, who is this guy? Because just, let's see, it was about 7 years before that when my dad had passed. I didn't have that mentor figure in my life. And all of a sudden you appear in my life and come into my life at just the right time, because it was about that time I actually turned down a full-time teaching position at a community college level. And I had this desire to open up my own training studio, and not having any business background, you of all people step into my life. And I am so grateful for that.
I remember you saying, Wayne, I've got a dream. And this was in 1999.
Yep.
And if I recall, it was in early December. But anyway, you said, I've got a dream.
Yeah.
And I want to build this strength training center. And not just a normal gym, but a strength training center, and deal with athletes and lots of ordinary Joes and Janes as well. But you said, I don't know anybody in business. I don't know anything about business. Would you consider being my mentor? And it didn't take me one nanosecond to say, of course I will, Todd, because, you and I were close. You're my daughter's age. Mm-hmm. And you and I were already very close, and we had long talks, and I was teaching and listening and whatever. And so we had this real great connection before any of this happened. Yeah. So I just remember being there and, incorporating the company and finding space and getting some funding and buying equipment and choosing the name and the whole works, right? And I taught you 5 key principles of growth, which maybe we'll talk about here today.
Yeah.
And there's still the same 5 principles of growth.
Well, something else you said to me, you probably don't remember saying this, was at that time of my life, I was so scared to go into business, I was going to have a partner. And you said, stop, time out. Do not open this business with a partner. I said, what do you mean? If I have a partner, it's half the time, and I don't have any money. I have no business plan, and I need a partner. You said, listen to me. Do not go into business with a partner. Now, I know there are some partnerships that work, but back then in 1999, in the fitness business, training studios as I envisioned, I wanted a studio where people didn't pay memberships. They'd only pay me when they came in and trained. Now, that's the norm now, but back then it was just large, big box gyms that you paid a membership and you hope people didn't come in. And I wanted to create something where people always came in and only paid me when they did come in. And yes. One of the best pieces of advice you ever gave me is do not start this business with a partner. And I remember telling Melanie that because it was then we were dating. And when I told Melanie that, she's like, just whatever Wayne says, listen to him.
Well, my wife, Brenda, says, you will never get another partnership, Wayne. Right? Right, honey. I will never. I think I've been in 6 or 7 in my lifetime. And it is not the way to go.
Well, you have provided so much wisdom, and I want to share all the way back to the very beginning, because when we were forming Fitness Quest 10 and you were giving me such great counsel, one of the things you asked me is, you said, Todd, do you want to build 1 or do you want 500? I thought about it for 5 seconds and said, I only want to build 1. I want to build one where people could flock to it from all over the country. They could come see me if they're in pain, or if there's an athlete that wants specialized training, they'd come in. And then you said, well, do you remember what you said from that?
I said, no, Todd, you need to build a process-driven business. And you see, if you're building multiples, if you think like that, you know you can't be in all those businesses. And so that means you'll build a process-driven business where you have standard operating procedures for so many things in your business. And it means that you can buy yourself some freedom so that you don't have to be it all the time.
That's right.
And so the whole concept is to build one business like you're going to build 50 or 500 more. And that will force you to make it process-driven.
And you said that, you said, Todd, I want you to build it like you're going to build 500 more. And I said, Wayne, I don't want 500. I'll be lucky if I survive with one. And you said, build it like you're going to build 500. Right. And one of the greatest mistakes I made early on, being a knucklehead, was I didn't build it early on in my career like I was going to build 500, because I didn't make it process driven. It was very personality driven, unlike today, where we have much greater processes and systems in our business. Because when you're starting out, you're trying to do everything. You're a professional juggler, doing the marketing, the training. You're handling all the customer inquiries, everything that goes on in the business. You are that. And now, 20 years later, your wisdom still reigns true, and we are much more process driven now.
It's interesting. I was doing a workshop in Brisbane one time, and there was a guy saw some of my promotional material, and he said, "Do you mind if I come and audit your program?" And if I recall, the name of the company was Results Corp. And we specialized in fixing companies. And so I said, sure, absolutely. So he came and he said, I love what you're doing. And he said, it's, you know, these processes that you have, that you've created for financial advisors, which is really, you know, my background in the marketplace I work in. He said, they look terrific. He says, you've underpriced everything. He said, these things you're charging $1,000 for should be $5,000. And the things you're charging $5,000 for should be $25,000, because that's the value you're delivering, Wayne. You're delivering a methodology for other people to be able to create their businesses and their lives. And he said, like, how much do you think it cost you to come through all these things and make all these mistakes? And, you know, and I spent a fortune. I spent a fortune making mistakes. Right. But the bottom line is, he said, what we do is we go into a company and we talk to everybody from the guy who's sweeping floors to the CEO. And we ask them, so what is the process for your job? And he said, all we do is we fix the processes so that they work properly and the reporting lines are proper. And we got standard operating procedures. And he said, we can take a company that's just in really bad shape and make it into an amazing company with that one word.
So what would you say if there is an entrepreneur or a high performer today who needs to develop their processes even more so? Is it starting with an audit, would you say, or to list out all of the different processes that need to be developed and then to get some butt glue and sit down and to work on that? What advice would you give?
Well, if you've got an existing business, it's an ongoing concern, ongoing business. Then just start to look at what happens. Like when somebody walks in the door, a new prospect walks in the door, what do you do? What do you say? How do you handle that situation? How do you pivot? Where do you send that person? And as you start to look at those kinds of things, you'll start to see that it's like a mind map, you know, where there's tentacles. This goes over here and that goes over there. And you start to document stuff. And you take the broad strokes, you know, like how are you doing your marketing? How are you doing your prospecting? How are you introducing people to your services? What value to deliver? You know, the services that you provide, including the ongoing customer service, client service, and so on. And so you start looking at those things and you start mapping it out. And it can be pretty loose initially. I mean, just doing the broad strokes. Here's the 5 areas in which we work with our clients.
Right.
And then what happens is, as you're going through and building your 90-day strategies, which is something I'm sure we'll talk about, as you're building your 90-day strategies, you want to review your business process from A to Z. You want to review it all the way through and say, what are the soft spots? I was just writing about this morning. What are the soft spots? What are the things that could be working better than they are right now? And when you see something, you pull that out of the lineup, you put it under a magnifying glass, you say, how can I convert this problem into a procedure? So it's either a procedure, it's a program, it's a person, it's it might be a piece of software, but whatever it is, when you look at that and you say, okay, that isn't working as well as it should. Like in my business, it might even be confirming appointments, too many broken appointments. So let's pull that out of the lineup and say, what can we do to improve that? And you think about it, you examine it, you may look some things up, and you decide, okay, here's what we're going to do about that. And then you lock it in, you run for another 90 days. Now, initially, when you're building your business process, you might be fixing 5 or 8 things every quarter. And when you identify those as a part of your strategy, when you identify those, go ahead and handle several right away at the beginning of the quarter, because now you're going to benefit from it for the whole quarter. But the things that are bigger, you put them on your list of the things you're going to do in the next 90 days as a more major project, right?
Absolutely.
So if you take some extra time in blue sky days in the beginning, when you're doing your strategizing and working on your life and on your business, that's when you're identifying these things. And you're doing this with your team as well. It's not just you, it's you and your team. So as you go through the 3 questions, which we'll talk about when we talk about the 90-day wonder, when you go through those 3 questions, people are going to report in, and people are going to be working together to say, what are the things that aren't working as well as they should? What are our issues? What are our present negatives? And when you define those, it isn't a big thing. Oh man, we're such a failure. Not at all. You should always start with what you accomplished in the last 90 days, and that's a good thing. And then you look at what the current issues are, present negatives. And then what you do is you say, so what are we going to do? The third question is, what are we going to do in the next 90 days? And when you lock that in and everybody's got their list of what they're supposed to do in the next 90 days, obviously it's powerful, because now what you're doing is you're managing the process, not the people, which is another key thing, right? When you got your process in place, don't worry so much about managing the people. Sure, you want to train people on their steps in the process. But once the process is in place, you're going to manage the process more than the people. And if somebody can't handle steps number 3, 13, 18, and 24 the way they're supposed to, well, then you might have to get somebody else to do that.
Yep.
Right? But each of those steps has to be a standard operating procedure in what you do. And that's what buys you freedom in the end. It buys everybody more fun. It's exciting, because now we're improving the overall business by putting these steps in place for each of these areas.
Yeah, no, so good. And when I look at life now, I look at it as so systemized when it comes to peak productivity, because I think about reverse engineering success. And when I look at all the way from the annual roadmap and strategic plan, all the way down into the 90-day wonder, into what 3 and 30, and all of it down into my W legs every darn week. So much of it has been influenced by your systems, Wayne, and your processes and procedures. And it brings up a thought of mine. You said this 2 years into my business. I got so busy the first couple of years. I was working 7 days a week. And I was at first trying to survive because I didn't have any money. And we grew our business, and I was working. I remember calling you and saying, Wayne, I haven't had a day off in months. And you asked me a question I'll never forget. You asked me a question that I still use to this day with the people I coach, and it gets into some of your systems. But you asked me, hey, Todd, is life a marathon or a sprint? And I said, Wayne, it's a marathon. He who gets to the finish line first wins. You looked at me dead in the eye. You remember what you said to me, Wayne?
I said, no, Todd, it's not a marathon. It's a sprint. You need to sprint between your breaks, but you need to have mellow yellow time. Mellow yellow stands for MY, my time. We all need to have mellow yellow time. And it's like any athlete, right? Sprints are a lot more important than trying to run the whole game all the way through. They got to have breaks. And people do too.
And you know what else you said? You follow that up, and I'll share this with our listeners today, because every time we talk, it's personal. Is you said, life is a sprint. It's a series of sprints. But if you keep running a marathon at a sprinter's pace, you're going to end up like your father, dead at the age of 58. I'll never forget that moment. I said, tell me more. And that's when you started talking about mellow yellow and blue sky time. Because at that point, I was sprinting at a marathon. I was sprinting a marathon distance. And I remember when you looked at me and you said that no, It's not a marathon. It's a sprint. And like you train your athletes, you've got to sprint, recover, sprint, recover, sprint, recover. Otherwise, you will end up like your father did at the age of 58. I was all ears. All right, my friends, today's episode is powered by a tool that I rarely do a workout without. It's called Myzone. Myzone is a heart rate monitor that tracks your heart rate, your calories, your percentage of your max heart rate, and something called MEPS, which stands for your Myzone effort points. I want to know, how hard are you working in the gym? And what's beautiful about MEPS is I can test if you're working as hard as my pro athletes, or if the grandma or the grandpa or the young kid is outworking you. Never get outworked, because you always want to be the hardest worker in the room. The other aspect I love about Myzone is it's an app that gives you a great visual when you're doing your workouts. Based on how hard you're working, you're either in the gray zone, you're in the blue zone, green zone, yellow zone, or the red zone. I love the red zone. The harder you work, the more you get rewarded with your MET points. That's why it's called Myzone. Heck, we even have a Myzone scoreboard at Fitness Quest 10, and I encourage all of our clients to wear their Myzone belts so we can monitor their workouts, and if they want to compete, they can compete a little bit also. Lastly, within the Myzone app, you can friend people and follow their workouts, send them messages, and even have contests. And I love to compete. Heck, I encourage all of our people to follow me and see my workouts on the Myzone app, and I'll follow you back also. My Myzone app name is TD10. Pick up a belt today at www.myzone.org. I know you're going to love it, and if you're like me, you're going to want to wear it in all of your workouts, and you're going to hate it when you forget it. Check it out today and get one. Myzone.org. Get in the zone. Get in Myzone. Can you expand a bit upon, if there's anyone listening in today that needs more, quote, mellow yellow time or blue sky time, or they want more green machine, because you said, hey, you want to make more money, right? I said, of course, we need to make more money. We need to generate more money. And you're like, well, you can't work the way you're working and get more money. I was like scratching my head like, what do you mean by that?
Well, see, I was raised on the farm up in Alberta, Western Canada. And my dad, every time I was going out to be around the cattle of the machinery, he'd say, don't forget to use your noggin and make every move count. That was I always got that instruction. And I was a dawdler and a dreamer. So, he knew that I was off track a lot of the time. And so make every move count. And, hard work is the order of the day. When you're working on the farm, like, hard work is it, right?
Right.
Want to accomplish more, you work harder. So I came into this business when I was 21. I started off as an insurance agent when I was 21 years old. Mm-hmm. And, my background was that I was a failure at everything I tried. It took me 5 years to fail a 3-year high school program. And I got kicked off every sports team. I was the first one to get kicked off everything I tried out for. Couldn't look a girl in the eye when I was 19, which is a serious deal for a 19-year-old. And I used to go out and eat my lunch in my vehicle. I wasn't involved in school activities. I go out and eat my lunch by myself in my vehicle. And through a series of events, I ended up in the insurance business in the city. And in the insurance business, when I was 21, I was driving a garbage truck before that. And had 5 car accidents in my driving record when I was 19, and 3 of them were with parked vehicles. I mean, I didn't have a very bright looking future. And I ended up in the insurance business. I ended up going to a thing called Success Seminars. And it was a 5-week course. It was every Monday night between 8 and 11, taught by a guy who was very well read. And I learned so much from Val. He talked about the greats and the philosophers and the ideas and whatever. He always referred us to books. And so I had a huge library of books, and I got absorbing stuff and learning and learning and learning. So what was your question?
The question was, when it comes to mellow yellow time, blue sky time, that if you want more green machine, you've got to get more mellow yellow time and more blue sky. So the importance of working on your business is that blue sky time, which you're an advocate of every, obviously 3 days, every 90 days, you're working on your business, working on yourself. The mellow yellow, as you always say, What I always share is your biggest aha moments come when you're at the beach, you're in the mountains, you're skiing, you're away from work. So that was our discussion.
So here's what happened. I got in the business and I was a failure there too.
Mm.
And then I decided, well, I really got to learn this stuff. And so I went into, deep learning mode.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened was I was working harder all the time. I went 7 years without taking a day off.
Mm.
And I was in the office till 2 or 3 on Saturday afternoon. I was back in there at 4 or 5 on Sunday evening. And it was this Wayne Cotton workaholic, just winding it up to go and do it all over again, week after week after week after week. I took 10 days off. And then I went another 3 years before I took another break. So that's 10 days off in 10 years.
Mm.
Guess what I got? 8 stress-related medical problems in a period of 2 years. Well, at that time, I learned some things and I was doing reasonably well. I was a member of the $1 Million Roundtable, life member. And I had 11 people in my marketing and support staff. I had this fancy office space downtown. I was president of the local Financial Advisors Association, 700 members. And I was just working my butt off. But what happened was, the longer you go without taking the breaks, the more you're wearing yourself down. And it's just starting to erode. I said in my first main platform talk at the $1 Million Roundtable that I did a workshop in another city. I don't remember being there. I was there because I got the receipts to prove I was there. But I don't remember being there. I was so blitzed. Well, then you become ineffective at making decisions. You're making wrong decisions all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so the end result of that is that you're making dumb decisions. And I was always going for it. I was investing back in the business and I was spending all this time and energy and everything else. And then, the biggest skill I learned wasn't how to earn an income, it was how to borrow an income. That's a dumb skill to learn. It's like the Texans say, big hat and no land. And so I, it was all like a stack of dominoes. And when I couldn't perform at the same level, I was the one who was supporting all these people. And they were supposed to be generating income, but few of them were. I didn't understand that part of the process yet. And so then everything imploded, and it didn't just implode, it exploded. Sheriff and I were on a first name basis. I had 7 legal judgments against me. Lost our office space, our equipment, our furniture, my staff. Lost vehicles, lost our home. I had to put money into clear titles so they could take it away. And it was brutal. I'm president of the association. And I got all this stuff happening in my life. And, it was totally and completely brutal. It was just terrible. And, I ended up with my client files in a rented garage behind a rented house. And I knew I was going to have to go bankrupt. I had to go find a bankruptcy trustee. This is the day after we went through our home to clean out everything. So only one thing left in the house. There was a 3x5 card thumbtacked to the wall where my desk had been the day before. I glanced at it, walked into the next room. It had been through 3 homes over a 10-year period of time. I didn't need it anymore. And I thought about it and I stopped. I walked backwards. I looked at that 3x5 card and I thought, no, I need that. So I pulled the thumbtack, put it in my jacket pocket. I went to Smitty's restaurant on Calgary Trail. I could tell you which table I sat at. This is at the end of 1980. And dropped my car keys in my jacket pocket. It was wintertime and out comes this 3x5 card. And it says, if you got a problem. And I went, ha ha ha. If you got a problem. I felt like I had more problems than everybody in the whole city combined. I felt like I was a farm kid trying to do a good job in the big city, and look what happened. I screwed up so badly. I'm such a fool. I lose my career over this. And then I read the rest of it. It says, if you got a problem, make it a procedure and it won't be a problem anymore. I read it about 50 times over breakfast. And I thought, I wonder if I could pull this off. Because I'd never really procedurized the business. I'd already created a bunch of tools that are known today as the Cotton system. I'd already created a bunch of tools. But I got away from them because I was so distracted all the time.
Right.
A distraction is the enemy of productivity. Distraction, diversion, diffusion, that's the enemy of productivity. And so today, of course, the distractions are a zillion times more than they were then. Every time you got a ring or a ding or another thing happening, like, you're distracted. You're looking off sideways.
Yep.
And so the problem is, how do you get anything accomplished when that's what you're doing all the time? And so I never take a phone to the bedroom. We don't have a TV in the bedroom. My phone is downstairs. I don't have my business email in my hand. Now, some people have to have, but I don't. I don't have my business email in my hand ever, because it's other people interrupting me with their goals in life instead of me focusing on mine. And it's a disease. The distraction factor is unbelievable. And so what happened was, I was always in distraction, and I was always building this library of knowledge, right? So I read this thing, got a problem, make it a procedure, problem, procedure. I didn't know at the time, but that was Ray Kroc's favorite phrase when he was building McDonald's restaurants. You got a problem, make it a procedure, won't be a problem anymore. I'll say it like the original guy used to say it, Ben Feldman. If you've got a problem, make it a procedure, and it won't be a problem anymore. This guy was amazing. He was the top advisor in the whole world by far. He thought so far above and beyond anybody else. And he's a little short, dumpy guy, 5'6" maybe, spoke with a lisp. And he ended up in this business. And he was incredibly powerful. Everything he said made so much sense. And so I wrote this phrase down. But I never really saw it, Todd, for 10 years. I never really got it. Until my back was so much against the wall that I had to do something. And I'm going to go find this bankruptcy trustee that day. And instead I read this 3x5 card. And I wondered, man, if I could talk to my creditors, if I could tell them what I did wrong and what I'm going to do right, would they even listen to me? Second thing I did that same day was I loaded up 4 filing cabinets, 4 doors each, 16 filing cabinet doors in my information retrieval system. It probably fit on a nice sized memory stick today, But at the time, it was 16 filing cabinet doors full of stuff that I'd filed away, sales ideas and success ideas and product ideas and my future plans and all this stuff. I'd filed it all away meticulously, over a dozen years. And this is my 12th year in the business when this implosion took place. I filed this stuff away, and I was so frustrated with myself that how is this possible? Knowledge is power, right? Or is it? Oh, now there's an interesting phrase. Because you see, sometimes knowledge is your distraction factor. And you know people as well as I do who are educated derelicts. They got all this information, but they can't put it together because they've overdone it.
Right.
To the point where they're non-functional. It isn't about education, it's about activation. So we need to, sure, education is important. I won't deny that for a second, but it's education on the things that you're trying to accomplish, not on everything else.
Preach.
Right? So what happened was I'd take these 16 filing cabinet doors and the old 53 Ford pickup, the only vehicle I had left, and I roared out to the city dump. And I emptied them all, let all that paper scatter in them. And this was before the days of recycling, of course. And I got back to the edge of the city dump and I thought, what did I just do? Oh my gosh, what did I just do? It was too late. And then a few blocks later, I thought, I'm a free man. I don't have that anchor around my neck all the time. I need to be an implementer, not somebody who's just accumulating stuff.
Right.
So that was my second lesson. I teach these 3 lessons today. This is like many, many years, decades later. I teach these 3 lessons all the time today. Number 1, convert problems into procedures. Number 2, dump the junk. And I woke up the next morning with a phrase in my mind. The phrase was best case scenario, best case scenario, best case scenario. I know what best case scenario means. What does that mean to me? I got up, I went out to the garage, got out a big sheet, and I wrote best case scenario on the top, and I wrote it down about a dozen times, trying to absorb what does that mean to me? And then I decided I needed to look at my top 10 revenue generating client files. I didn't know it at the time, but I was reverse engineering my success. I didn't know that phrase at the time. I use it all the time now. And so once I discovered that, I realized it was a similar 7. The age range and the situation and the family and all, there was so many different factors there that were the same with a similar 7. And then the results were the same as well. In other words, I was in my zone, not the ozone, when I was dealing with those situations. So an advisor, like a lawyer, like an accountant, they call it a case that they're working on. So when I discovered my best case scenario, the lights went on like you wouldn't believe, because I realized this is a lot simpler than I thought. I mean, I was an elephant hunter chasing big cases, rabbit hunter chasing little cases. The big cases, you get hurt too badly. The little cases, you got to run a long ways to make a meal. And so when I realized what my best case scenario was, I decided I'm going to just focus on that. And I'm going to use my own system that I created that I got away from. I'm going to use my own system to find, sift, sort, and select the right people that I want to invite into my clientele. Guess what happened? It was amazing. I'm working out of my garage. I don't have any staff. I don't have this fancy office space downtown. It was 6 months before I hired anybody, and that was a part-time person. I doubled my highest year of income ever, even when I had all those people around me. I doubled my highest year of income ever. And it was easy peasy because, see, I just put it on repeat. Repeatable processes generate predictable results. And those processes I knew, and dealing with those clients, I knew how to do that. I knew I was good at that. I was an expert at that. And so I discovered a magical formula. And that formula is focus on your best case scenario. Like, what do you do best? Offload and delegate what you can for the rest. Of course, I didn't have anybody to delegate then at that time, but over time I built it up. So then what happened was, one night I was sitting out at my desk, the kids had gone to bed, and I was sitting out at my desk, and I was just kind of thinking, I need some real serious motivation here. I need to know what the end result is going to look like. And so I had a book called Critical Path to Sales Success, and the guy talked about color coding a week. I decided to color code a year. And so I built my first annual roadmap, a color-coded calendar that has 4 colors on it. Blue sky is working on your life and on your business. You need some blue sky time at the beginning of each quarter. Red tape is cleanup, administrivia, education, and stuff. Mellow yellow is my time. And then what's left over is green machine. What's left over is green machine. Green stands for go, green stands for money. So I'm going to go and earn some money doing what I do best on my green days. So here's what happened, Todd. I developed that at the beginning of 1981. I was just out of this horror story. And by the way, I talked to my creditors. I said, just give me 60 days. Everybody backed off a little bit. Well, by 60 days, number one, I had no overhead left. I was generating a consistent flow of income, and I had to pay off some money to these creditors. I kept on. It took me 6 years to get to zero, but I paid them all off without going bankrupt. And so, these lessons, these life lessons, I mean, that's default growth. We grow by design, we grow by default. Default growth is what happens when you've designed a plan, you're going down the pike, and you got it all laid out. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's my strategy. Here's my process. And you're busy executing that plan, but all of a sudden you get sideswiped, and boom, you're way over here in left field somewhere, and you're saying, what just happened? And that's called default growth. I've had a bunch of it in my life, as has everybody. You have too, right? Default growth just throws you off track, and you're trying to figure out, how do I get back on track? Well, now you got stretch marks, right? Now you got new information. So you never do go back to exactly where you were before, but you go back to go forwards with new knowledge and new understanding and new gifts that you've received. They're going to help you move forward the right way. So, I've had a lot of default growth in my life, but here's one of my beliefs. Problems create beneficial rearrangements. When you got a big problem, you got to figure out what are you going to do with it. And you have to understand that on the other side of that problem, things are going to be better. You have to believe that because it's true. Oh, sure, there's a few exceptions to the rule, but even your dad dying and my daughter dying, those are huge parts of default growth, huge. But you also learn from that. You have an experience about that. You have more empathy about that. You have more understanding of what you want and what you don't want in your life. So for me, if you got a big problem, You got to figure out how you're going to go around it, underneath it, through it, over it. But when you get to the other side, life is invariably better. You have a better understanding, better belief. I said that in a workshop one time, and I'd already talked about losing my 4-year-old daughter. And somebody said, so how does that apply to your daughter? Before I could answer, somebody else said, she's in a better place. I didn't have to answer the question. Now, the other thing that happened was my daughter made a beautiful butterfly for me. On a Sunday morning, she died on Tuesday morning. She was a healthy, great kid. That butterfly has been around the world in talks I've given. I saw Brian Tracy at an event. He says, hey, Wayne, the butterfly guy. You know, and I'm known for that. I got butterflies all over the place. And these butterflies are really a big deal to me because she made this cool butterfly and it impacted me so strongly.
Right.
When I went downstairs and started making some funeral arrangements for a little girl, and here's this butterfly standing there with his tongue sticking out of me. Yeah. So impactful. But a few years back, she's buried at a little country church, 40 miles out of the city of Edmonton. And I noticed that her grave was starting to settle some more. And so I dropped Brenda off at her mom and dad's place. And I said, I'm going to go out and spend the day with Adina. And I went out there. I split the center of her grave and peeled it back. Brought in some dirt. Put it back together again. Moved her headstone. It was out of sync a little bit. I talked to my daughter all day. Told her about her older sister and what she was up to. Or younger sister, pardon me, by 2 years. Talked about a younger brother who was 5 years younger. She never knew him. And I talked about what was going on in my life. And I shared with her how honored I was to share her story around the world. The butterfly story wasn't sympathy for me. It was about the importance of the relationships with the people we love and how important those relationships are. I think of your dad and the relationship. I mean, how much of your fundamentals came from your dad writing you a letter every day while you were in college? Unbelievable. What a huge mission he had and how that affected you. I hope you'll share that story someday with people. It's an amazing story. And so we have people that come into our lives that make a big difference for us. You know, one of the things I did was I loaded up some picks and shovels in the back of the old 53 Ford pickup, and a couple of buddies and I went out and dug her grave. It was part of what made it all right. It was part of the belief. When the doctors came in and said, she's gone. Some people have a faith base and some people don't. I have a faith base. And the first reaction was, she was a gift. She was never mine in the first place. I have to be thankful I had that gift for 4 years. Another belief was God sometimes picks the nicest flower in the garden. And so as time went by, and the butterfly just meant so much to me. And so I started sharing the butterfly story. First talk I ever gave in the US was Radio City Music Hall to 5,000 people, and I told the butterfly story. Then I ended up in 16 countries. One of the most important stories I could ever tell, or I ever have told, probably ever will tell, is the importance of the relationships with the people we love. But you see, I got so caught up with all my business stuff. I wasn't taking the proper breaks. I wasn't taking time off. And I got what I deserved, AIDS, stress-related medical problems. And so learning from that, when I did that first annual roadmap, I decided, okay, this is for 10 years from now. What's it going to look like? I decided I'd take 180 days a year off. So I did 180 mellow yellow days on that annual roadmap, thinking it's going to take me 10 years to get there. I was so excited about it, I did it the very next year. So not only did it double my highest year of income ever, but I took 180 days off instead of 0 days off. Man, my life changed. Because all of a sudden my health started improving. I started being a lot more in the moment. I started caring about my home front a lot more. I learned to love a lot more. I mean, so many things happen that were profound. I've always said, default growth is piercing and profound, and it goes right through you, but it also has a shiny side to it as well. The shiny side is looking up and looking forward and believing in what you're doing, and the importance of your passion and how it's affecting other people in the world. I mean, all that stuff is so important. And sometimes it takes some default growth for us to really recognize it. Mm. So I believe we grow by goals or we grow by gaps. A gap is when you got a hole and you recognize you got a gap, a capability gap, a time gap, a sleep gap. And those gaps have given me some of my most important learning, because once you identify a gap, you realize I got to fix this gap. Right? So then when you fix it, once again, you're back to putting processes in place and dumping the junk and focusing on your best case scenario. It's huge. Okay, I've been talking all the time. It's your turn.
Wow. Wait. I'm actually mesmerized right now. I don't know if you guys are listening in and feeling the same way, but can you see why, with what you just heard from Wayne Cotton, why I love this guy so much? Wayne, we didn't even script or plan any of this, and everything you just said was on my paper to ask you, and I didn't say a single word. And it's the first time in the history of my podcast that I didn't have to ask you a question.
Well, you know the deal.
I'm in tears. I'm crying. I'm laughing. And it's been that way for 22 years. I ask you a single question: is life a marathon or a sprint? And I just got a homily of just the most beautiful, eloquent words that one could hear about life and about business. And oh, man.
So, when you sent me the document of some of the things you wanted to talk about, you saw me, I threw it over my shoulder.
Mm-hmm. And I do want to follow up with a couple questions.
Sure.
Adina, how old was she? Can you share with our listeners today, how old was Adina when she passed?
She was 4. Just had her 4th birthday. Yeah. And it was quite an amazing thing. Mm. It was unreal. If I could find it quickly, I'd show you this slide of her butterfly.
It's okay.
But I ended my story at MDRT. In fact, I can give you a link, Todd.
I'll put it in the show notes.
To about 12 minutes of the back end of that talk where I told the butterfly story.
Please do that. I'll put it in the show notes, Wayne. I'll put it.
I got about 200 letters from people after I told that story. Mm. One lady says, and furthermore, there was 50 other women in the bathroom trying to repair their makeup at the same time too.
Wow. Is this powerful or what? Can you understand and see how Wayne Cotton has impacted my life? That story of Adina and him sharing that with you, I know is extremely personal to him. And I can't imagine as a parent losing a child. And for Wayne to share with such vivid memories of that and the impact that he had as a dad and that Adina had on him is truly remarkable. And I'm sitting here in amazement listening in here to part 1 of this episode, and I just want to thank Wayne with such gratitude for him sharing. And you can see how I've gleaned such amazing wisdom from this man, and why all of us need mentors, because Wayne has mentored me in so many ways in business and life. And I'm going to keep the conversation going, but I'm going to end this part 1 of the episode here so that you can have some time to digest all of that. You can go back and listen to it over and over again. But stay tuned for part 2 of this episode, because Wayne's going to share all about going to hell and back. Hey, if you enjoyed this episode today, part 1, please go and share it with your friends. Don't be afraid to share it. It is certainly going to go out there and radiate light and positivity into the universe, and let our fellow fire-breathing dragons know who Wayne Cotton is. And don't forget to tune in next time to part 2 of this episode. See you next time.